It's another delicious day here in the Let's Make Food from Food Kitchen, and today it's time to make our King's Cake for Fat Tuesday, the day before Lent starts. Let's get going. Okay, so I have my pot heating up right here. I want to get my milk heated somewhere between 110 and 120 degrees. I don't want it to boil. I'm gonna add my butter in there and get that melted as well. Let me find my thermometer real quick. I should have had that out, right? It's gonna be one of those days, folks. Okay, so I'm just gonna keep an eye on that. While that goes, I need my yeast to activate with some water and some sugar. So I'm gonna put those in and whisk them up. And then I'm just gonna set it aside and wait for it to foam. That should take approximately 5 minutes. So when this comes up, I'm gonna say to about 115. I'm gonna turn it off and take it off the heat because this pot will keep it warm. And then when this is ready, we'll combine them together. So I'll see you back here in just a couple of minutes. We're at 123, so we're close. I'm gonna put my eggs in here. 2 room temperature eggs. Your milk and your butter, this butter doesn't really make a difference because you're gonna heat it up anyway, but make sure your eggs are up to room temperature, and the rest of your butter for your filling needs to be really soft. So if you haven't taken it out, quick, go do that real quick. Oh wait, hurry, go. Okay, eggs are in. I'm gonna give this another stir and then mix my eggs. Ooh, almost splashed right on out of there. I have my mixing bowl for my stand mixer, and you can do this by hand. It just gets hard on your arms once you've added the majority of the flour in, because you do have to knead it for a while. I'm gonna put that back there. I just don't like everything dripping all over my counters. You'll get edited a lot because I'm busy putting everything over at the sink, and I should stop that. Okay, I'm just gonna drizzle this in onto the side, mostly because it's still warm, and the bowl is cool, so that'll just kind of cool it off a little bit more. Okay, so now I want to start adding in the rest of my ingredients and whisking. So my sugar can go in. Okay. And I need 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract, and I'm using the bourbon this time for a bolder flavor. There we go. If I was making a vanilla cake, I'd probably use the vodka extract. Okay. Next, I need about a teaspoon of lemon zest, and this is optional. You don't have to do the zest. I just like that little bit of flavor that it adds to the cake. So you can even add a little lemon juice if you want, but I'm not gonna go that far with it today. Oof, I almost dropped it. Okay, like I said, we don't need a ton, just a teaspoon is good. Okay, I'm gonna set that aside. This is done. I'll whisk that in and add our salt. And what I wanna do is start adding in some flour a little bit at a time. We don't want to dump. I have 5 cups here of flour, and I just want to add a little bit at a time, and I'm going to whisk it until it starts to get a little thicker, and then I will move it over to my mixer. And we just want to just start slowly incorporating this. And this is unbleached flour. It's just unbleached flour. It's not anything special other than that. You know, you guys know if you've been watching me for a while now that I don't use bleached flour in my kitchen. I even when I did a cake flour to make the chantilly cake, I found a bread flour that was not bleached, unbleached, unenriched cake flour. I just want to have the choice. If I want to add things in, I'll do it myself. Kind of gives me more control on what I'm putting in to what I'm making. And I'm going to take that opportunity to also remind you, if you've been watching for a while, and if you're new, I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad for their choices. If you need to go buy a made cake, go buy a made cake, right? We all have, I sometimes have to go do that. I'm busy. I'm a mom. I have 4 kids. One of them's grown and an adult herself, but the other 3 are younger, and I homeschool them. I make product videos for another company. So this is my passion though. creating content on my own is really what I want to be doing, and so I won't give it up in the midst of everything else, which means I'm a busy mom, and sometimes I just need to go pick up dinner. We are not devoid of doing that, and but when I am making things, I want it to be good. I want it to be healthier and homemade as much as possible, and so my intent is just to show you how to do it if you want to. If you need to go buy a cake mix, go buy a cake mix. There's no shame in what we need to do. Life has gotten out of control the last couple of years for everyone. There's very few people that I know where life looks the same as it did a couple of years ago, and the last thing we need is more people telling us we're doing it wrong. So that's my TED Talk. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to add a couple more scoops of flour here, and we may not use all 5 cups. We may have to add a tiny bit more. Just like any other dough, it's going to depend on your temperature, your humidity level, elevation. All that stuff affects what we do, which is why there's not one, this is on low, there's not one standard recipe that you follow faithfully across the globe. Everything changes it. So it just becomes about knowing what it should look like, knowing what it should feel like, and that comes with experience and playing around. I learn just as much from my mistakes as I do my successes in the kitchen. I encourage you to do the same. Okay, I am going to pause here for a second, and I'm going to scrape down the sides, and I'll keep doing that as I go along, because the amount of flour that ends up on the sides, especially in the beginning, is a lot, and you want to make sure you're accurately gauging your flour content in your dough. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to stick it back on low, and off we go again. The King's Cake's been around for a really long time. It came over from France, is my understanding, over to New Orleans, and it used to have trinkets inside, anything from a coin to a bean or a nut, and you were lucky if you happened to get a slice that had that in it. Today, we use a little plastic baby, and I don't bake mine inside the cake because I am always afraid that there's going to be some sort of toxin leaking out of the plastic baby once it gets heated. So what I do is I wash it, which I've already done, and you can either just set it somewhere on the cake, or if you still want to hide it, you could get it, like put a little slice in it after it's cooked and just kind of poke it in there. But make sure you warn your guests so that they don't choke on it or break some dental work. Nobody wants to eat a plastic baby. It's up to you on how you want to do it. Just make sure that your guests are aware if you've hidden it. Okay, let's add some more flour and scrape off our sides. You can see it's still very runny, and we want a dough. We want a nice, soft, supple dough. And then we have to have some rising time. There are some steps to making your king cake, and I have recently learned how to add chapters in my YouTube videos, so I will go through and add those chapters so that as you go through, you can then fast forward to where you need to. Unless you want to watch the whole thing again, go for it. Okay, let's stick it back on. So back to the baby. The tradition is, if you're the one that finds the little baby, you are the one who hosts the party next year. I wouldn't be sad about the baby every year. I like hosting parties. All right. I'm gonna add the rest of this. It does look like I will need maybe another half a cup or so, but I'm not gonna gauge that until this is done. So here we go. Okay, it's starting to get thicker and resemble more of a bread dough, so I'm just gonna do a tablespoon at a time, and I need to wait until it is fully incorporated before I add another tablespoon. So, patience again, Michelle. I'm talking to me, not to you, because I have to remind myself. I just wanna spray that. Set it aside. I am going to need some plastic wrap too, but first I'm going to get this off of here, and I want to get all my dough into a ball. I let it go for quite a few minutes on the kneading. Okay, and I'm just going to get my dough ball out of here. Okay, so what I want to do is just kind of roll that in the oil and then flip it over so it's all coated with the oil. I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap and let it sit for about 2 hours. I want to see it double in size. Okay, we're back. I need to make my filling, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. I've got a stick of butter here. That's 1 cup of packed brown sugar, some cinnamon, and I'm gonna mix that together. Do-do-do-do-do. I don't know why I'm singing. Okay, and then I'm gonna add a half a cup of flour and mix that in too. Okay, I have 2 baking sheets. This is a recipe for 2 cakes, so if you only need 1, cut all of the ingredients in the list in half. Okay, now I'm going to set this aside, and I am about to get a little messy. So I need to prep my surface with some flour, and I'm going to grab an apron. I need to do a couple of things to set myself up for some success here. I need to spray down my baking sheets, and you can use parchment paper if you don't want to spray them down. Okay, that's done. And now I'm going to set this over here, give myself a little space, and I need to dust my working surface pretty good. And I have my French rolling pin. You don't need it to be a French rolling pin, just a rolling pin. I just like it because it's tapered. I always smack my knuckles on the ones with the handles because I stop paying attention and I smack my knuckles. Okay, so that's done. I need to punch this down. Okay, and I need to cut it in half since I'm doing 2 cakes, so I'm going to try and get this about the same size. Try not to touch everything. Okay, cut it in half. I'm going to put half of it back in the bowl, and this one I'm going to flatten out. I want to make a rectangle, 12 by 18, 12 by 16, 12 by something along those lines. Okay, so I put a little on my hand, and I'm just going to dust my pin a little bit, and I'm going to get to work. I'm going to get to work rolling. I'm laughing because I was like, "What?" My brain's like, no more work today. What are you doing? Now, there's a couple of ways you can do this. Some people like to braid their cake, and so if that's what you want to do, continue this step, but then you're going to cut it into strips before you roll it. I'm going to not braid it. I just don't think it bakes up as nicely with all those twists. So it's up to you. If you like it that way and have good success, by all means, who am I to tell you to do it differently? Okay. I want to take about half of my filling, and I just want to get the inside square of it spread out. I want to leave a line around so that when it's time to roll it up, I can seal it upon itself. If you are going to throw caution to the wind and put your baby into the cake before you bake it, now's the time. Just put it in here. Because we talked about it not doing that. I am a little worried about toxins and stuff leaching out of the plastic and into my food, so I'm going to add it after the fact, after the baking. Okay? Now, I'm just gonna get some of that off my fingers. I want to roll it up. I'm gonna roll it towards myself, and I want to try and get it kind of tight. And it'll stretch out some as you roll it, and that's totally fine. Okay, and then once you've gotten it completely rolled, you're gonna pinch and try and get this to seal up so that it stays together. And you also want to pinch your ends a little, but not completely, because you're gonna pinch them together. This will be the bottom of your cake. So you're gonna turn this so that it's bottom side down, so it doesn't really matter if it looks all pinched up. But that's how you seal it, so it doesn't come apart like a cinnamon roll does as it bakes. So, I'm happy with that piece. What I want to do, turn it over, and I'll turn it this way so you can see. Okay, I'm going to stretch it a little because it's a little thicker on that side, and I am going to pinch this together. Okay, it's not going to be the prettiest part of the cake, but good news, we're going to ice it so we can cover it with icing. Okay, I'm going to move this over to that pan, and I'm going to cover this one. You want to cover them back up, and I'm going to let it rest for 45 minutes. So that one will go in the oven first. If you have a full-size oven, you can bake them both at the same time. I'm going to repeat the process, and I will see you back here when I'm done, and we will get to baking. Okay, time is up. I'm gonna take the cover off of this one. I'm gonna bake it for about 30 minutes. Once it's done, we're gonna pull it out, immediately make our icing, and then ice them. I'm gonna go ahead and bake both of them though before I come back on, so they're both ready for icing. See you soon. Okay, we've made it to the finish line. I have my 2 cakes. Obviously one cooked a few more minutes than this one. It's still good. My hole's closed up in both of them. Pretty small. They're still there, but it's fine. I have powdered sugar and water. I'm just going to make the icing really quickly. I'm doing it in here so it'll pour easier than in a bowl. You can do it however you want. Just gonna mix it up. I have my 3 sanding sugars, the colors typically used for Mardi Gras for the King's Cake. They each have a meaning. The purple is for justice, and the green is for faith, and the gold is for power. Okay, and you want to drizzle this on while the cakes are still really warm. Now we're getting somewhere. I'm just adding a little water at a time so I can get the right consistency. I think we need just a little bit more. And remember, this has to go for 2. So make sure that when you're icing your cake that you only do half of it on one. And again, cut the recipe in half if you're doing just one cake. Okay, here we go. And ice away. And we're gonna go in with the second one. And if you find you don't have enough icing, you can always make more. It's just powdered sugar and water. While that's still warm, you want to do your sanding. So whatever colors you're going to use, and keep in mind it's only going to stick to the icing. It's not going to stick to the cake unless the cake has something sticky on it. Okay. My icing on this one, I should have done the sanding sugar on this other one before I moved on to ice this one because it hardens pretty quickly. Now, last but not least, we have our babies. So you can tuck it into, like this split open, I could just tuck it right in there. I'm gonna give them a little bath right there in the center. And same here, we'll just let him soak right in there. Or her, him or her. They're ungendered babies. So here we go. There is our King's Cake. Now you can make this more colorful by adding more icing. So double your icing recipe. I think it makes it too sweet, and so that's why I don't do that. Our King's Cake is done. I feel like I should cut this open. What do you think? Thanks for joining me here today in the Let's Make Food from Food kitchen. I hope you've enjoyed this recipe. From my kitchen to yours, let's make food from food.
That's one boy puppy.